Hello, I'm Charles Langford, graduated in 1964 from Lebanon High School, and I've been requested to tell a few yarns on some of the school teachers that was there at that time. And I'm going to tell you one on Miss Beatrice Raley. She was our English teacher for 4 years that we had to put up with her. But we really didn't put up with her, she put up with us. But I remember one time that George Hayden, we were spring cleaning the rooms between junior high building and the old high school. George was on the outside of the window cleaning the glass. And being Miss Raley, a school English teacher, George fell out the window and hit the concrete and knocked himself out. And somebody turned around and said, Miss Raley, George has fell out the window. And Miss Raley turned around, snapped her finger and said, has fallen, has fallen. Then there was another time that Mr. Ombre Umble was the biology teacher. Barry Benningfield, Carl David Burris, Oni Owens, and I was in there, and Carl David and I sat next to each other in those desks that you unscrew the back and it would fall out. So I'd leaned over one day to read the lesson, and when I leaned back, the chair fell out of the back of it. Mr. Umble come back there and shook me till my glasses fell off. Thought I did it, but I didn't do it. But then another time, Barry threw a piece of chalk at Oni Owens, and it missed Oni, hit Mr. Umble in the back of the head. Well, I cackled out because I thought it was funny, so when he turned around, I was the only one laughing, so he came back there and shook me again until my glasses fell off. Then Mr. Umble, he walked back up front, and Barry Benningfield, who was the principal out here for years and years, which is a dear friend of mine, raised his hand and said, Mr. Umble, Charles David didn't throw that chalk. And Mr. Umble said, folks, give Barry a big hand for being a man. Shook my glasses off, but thanked Barry. Miss Pauline Adams, she was the algebra teacher when we was there. Bobby Cox, Oni Owens, and myself, and Barry Benningfield. We all sat in a little cluster. And one day, Oni came back to sit down in the seat, and Bobby had put a tack in Oni's seat. Oni sat in the seat, gave a yelp, up he came, and I cackled again. And Miss Adams came back there and told me to remove my glasses. I asked Oni, said, what happened? He said, somebody put a tack in my seat. And she looked at me and she said, take your glasses off. I said, Miss Adams, I didn't do it. She said, take your glasses off. I said, please, Miss Adams, don't do it, because when Miss Adams hit you, you was in another planet. So Bobby Cox raised his hand and he said, Miss Adams, Charles David didn't put that tack over there. He said, I did. And about that time, she whaled him, and out on the floor he went. But we had a good time in high school. Loved it. Had some good, those teachers were dedicated. And we loved every one of them. We gave them a hard time, but they loved us or they wouldn't have put up with us. And I've enjoyed telling these stories. And if you need any more, you let me know. Mr. Umble was a biology teacher and an agricultural teacher, and we loved that man. We really did, but we gave him a hard time. Mr. Umble had a habit, and we'd mock him, and habit was go, shh, shh, shh. So one day Tom Corbett, and Tom still lives here in the county, Tom will remember this if he hears this, he was in the hall talking to someone, and Tom was always late every day for this class. So Mr. Umble, those big tall doors that were up there, and they're still there, walked over and locked the door. He said, shh, we play trick on Tommy. We play trick on Tommy. Shh. Well, everybody was quiet, and after a while the door rattled. We knew Tom was outside trying to get in. Mr. Umble, shh, we play trick, we play trick. Door rattled again. About that time, door went wham. Splinters came off of it. Tom kicked it open. Mr. Umble grabbed a yardstick. Of course, Tom was probably a foot taller than Mr. Umble. Mr. Umble grabbed a yardstick and comes to Mr. beating on him. You smart aleck, you kicking that door like that. And we all just cracked up over it. Tom never did. You know, Tom, a great big boy, he was like a junior, you know. They didn't faze Tom, and he just laughed and went on. I've got one more to tell you. It's on Walter Baswick. We had him for American history. Mr. Baswick, he had teeth, but he never did wear them. He had glasses, and they sat on top of his head, and he couldn't find them half the time. But one day I had to give, the whole class had to give a report on some American patriotic person. So anyway, mine was on Aaron Burr. I don't know why, it was on Aaron Burr. So we were supposed to get up in front of the class and read the report, which I did. And I've always talked pretty fast, and I've always thought pretty fast, and I was already nervous to begin with. And I got up and I read the report. And I went back and took my seat. Mr. Baswick had a habit. He would take a piece of paper, and he would fold it like so. And he would crease it back and forth, back and forth. Then he would turn it and crease it. And the purpose of this was, these was his little test papers he'd tear into and pass out later for test. But he sat there and did that, and he said, Charles David Langford, do you know what they would have done to you in 1896 for reading that fast? I said, no, sir. They'd hung you. Now get back up here and read that report like an American, and which I did. Mr. Hanks was the school teacher up there when I went to Lebanon High School, and a super nice guy, but we gave him a hard time too. And I found out his name was J.C. Hanks, Jim Clinton Hanks. And when I was coming down the hall one day, getting ready to go into study hall in the auditorium, Mr. Hanks was coming down the hall. And being the way I am, I spoke to him first. I said, hello, Jim Clinton Hanks, and went on into the auditorium, sat down. And it wasn't long till somebody was pecking on my shoulder. And I looked up, and guess who it was? Mr. Hanks, doing like this. So I followed him out in the hall, and he looked down at me, and he said, Mr. Langford, what is my name? I said, Jim Clinton Hanks. He got tickled, said, go on back and study.
I guess I'd like to start out by saying, first thing, I'd like to thank Kenny Merritt and the city for restoring the old building. I know it's a lot of history behind it. There's a lot of people who graduated from the high school. There's probably some better people that could be interviewed more prompt than I could. But there's things that happened to me at the high school that I'll never forget. I drive by there every day. There's memories that come back that I guess it's just old time things that happen that you never forget. Some of the people that stand out in my mind the most is just like Charlie Colosso, Ted Cook, Sam Sears, who was the football coach at that time, and they have had a lot of influence on different people. Sports, you know, was my cup of tea, and everybody that graduated from the high school had something special, but mine was sports. Some of the teachers that stand out in my mind is Miss Pauline Adams, Mr. Baswick, Jim Cherry, Miss Rayleigh, Mr. Crean, and I'm sure there's several more that just don't come to my mind right now. I guess some of the events that's probably to me was sports. I was the first one to have the jersey retired at Lebanon High School, and then we had another boy that passed away, was Larry Isaac. I retired his jersey. We've had a lot of great times together. I taught for 31 years, and the teachers that I taught with, I guess the one that would stand out in my mind the most is Joe Bradshaw. He's a fine citizen, and if you go back to some of the students that was in class of 1958, I think there was around 50 students that graduated at that time, but my old buddy Jake Pirkwell, he comes right off the top of my mind. Then there was Billy Rose and Cole McDuffie, Joe Thurman, there was a Rice boy, and then of course back then you hardly ever heard of twins, but we had Coleman and Colleen McDuffie, who Mr. McDuffie and Miss McDuffie are still around in Marion County as great citizens. I don't know where Mr. Wren wants me to stop at, but I'm very enthused about the old building being restored, because I do think that I can recall the days when I played independent basketball with Shug Brown. He was a big leader in keeping all of us young people. You take after you get past 40, you quit playing sports. But from 20 to 40, if the gym is open up and for these guys to go up there and let off a little steam and shoot a basketball, I'd rather see them shooting a basketball and down there in the bar somewhere having a cold beer. And we take our students. There's a lot of events that is going to happen good. They can have dances for them. They can play ping pong, basketball, volleyball. It's just going to take some recreation person to organize all these things and get them in the right order. But I do think that the city is on the right channel in order to develop and restore the old building. I guess the most important thing in my life and probably the most influence on my life, and it come out of Lebanon High School. You know, we all find spouses and some of us will find girlfriends, but I'll have to say truthfully that I found my sweetheart at Lebanon High School, and we've been together and married now for 42 years, and she has stood beside me through heck and heaven, and all the bruises and bangs I had in football, but she always stayed with me. She helped me in every direction I could, and she's still with me, and I still love her, and I always will.
We graduated in 1958 from Lebanon High School. We had our 40th reunion 5 years ago, and this May we will have our 45th. So Tommy and Jake and I have been working on that. Charlie Martin was one of our favorite teachers, and Mrs. Johnston. I can tell one good funny story on Mrs. Johnston. She was walking down the hall one day, and the boys had put a bucket of water up over the door sill. The door was about halfway closed. We were in Mr. Cherry's class, and they saw her coming, so they got the bucket of water down right before she came through the door. But we had a lot of fun. We had a great group of people in our class. We had Dr. Salot's daughter, Virginia, John Keith's son, Randy, Dr. Salot's daughter, Virginia.
You just mentioned her.
Oh, did I say her? Okay, who else? Sam May's daughter, Betty Lou. Oh, Suella Hubbard, Lana Pearl, Quinn Pearl's daughter. They were all great, just super great. And of course, the 50s were the best years anyway, so they say, and I agree with them completely. Another funny story, we had a class with Mr. Baswick. He lost his glasses one day. Where are my glasses? He was running all over the room looking for his glasses. Did you get my glasses? Have you seen my glasses? No. They were on top of his head. And then another good one on him. He used to take his handkerchief and fold it over on his knee. Just so. And fold again. And fold again. And it just cracked us up, and we'd have to just hold it together, you know, to keep from laughing. But it was great. We loved it. We were not allowed to wear blue jeans. We wore long skirts or pleated skirts about halfway down to the calf of our leg. Bobby socks, penny loafers. Everybody wore ponytails and sweater sets. And of course the boys all had the crew cuts or the flat tops and used the butch wax. We all loved the football games and the basketball games because that was about all we had back then, and I was a cheerleader. Oh, that was Rosine. I forgot Rosine. Jesse Sims' daughter, Rosine. She was a cheerleader also. 1958, a great year. The average income was $4,400. A new house was less than $13,000. A new car was $2,000. A gallon of gas, 24 cents. Loaf of bread, 19 cents. A gallon of milk, 96 cents. Stamp, 4 cents. Minimum wage, $1. top TV show, Gunsmoke. President Eisenhower, and the invention was the first U.S. satellite.